Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and welcome to the Viewpoints at the Royal Award. We are very privileged to have with us today. We have with us Tun Musa Hitam, Chairman of the Jury for the Royal Award for Islamic Finance. He is also Chairman of the World Islamic Economic Forum, beside being a former Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, among the many positions that he has held over the years. We also have Mr. Iqbal Khan, recipient of the Royal Award 2012, and is also a well-regarded industry leader, being a figure in innovating the first sovereign sukuk structure. He also established HSBC Amanah, is now the CEO of Fajar Capital. Welcome, Tun, and welcome, Mr. Iqbal Khan. Thank you for taking the time off to actually join us today. Perhaps I could start off about the Royal Award for Islamic Finance. This is the third Royal Award for Islamic Finance. Last night, in the speech, you mentioned that there were about 48 nominations or submissions for this year. Has it been more difficult this year in terms of selecting the most deserving individual to actually receive the award?
Well, to begin with, it is precisely the figure 48.
Yeah.
There were 48 candidates, if you like. And it is easy in the sense that we already had experience of how to deal with it twice earlier, which Iqbal was the recipient of the last one. So the methodology, the approach was easier. The basis of where we make our assessments already set, so it's easy in that sense. It is difficult in another sense, in the sense that the quality of the candidates are much more challenging, if I may say, simply because of the close competition and the capabilities and the achievements of these persons concerned. And but to us, overall, it was a very satisfying exercise, because we pride ourselves by saying that the process has always been very intense and robust and very detailed and a lot of discussion that took place amongst us. Mind you, if I may personalize it, my jury members are no pushovers. They're really very good people. So overall, I think we felt a better sense of achievement, in the sense that we covered a wider field, because the nominations came from practically all over the world. So that was the situation. So it was a very satisfying thing for us. My fellow jury members were very proud that we made the right decision. We're convinced of that, because as I said last night, it was a unanimous decision.
Mr. Iqbal Khan, you were the recipient for the second Royal Award for Islamic Finance in 2012. You have the benefit of sitting on both sides, being the recipient, and last night you actually witnessed another individual being recognized for his outstanding contribution. How did it feel sitting on the other side, watching another individual receiving that recognition?
Well, it brought back memories, and the memories of being chosen. I felt very humbled, very privileged, and very honored. I also felt very proud of the fact that we had chosen to honor a man who I respect tremendously, Dato' Halim. His contributions are immense. And I was just telling Tun Musa a little while ago that the number of people who have called me from all over the world, commending the jury for the choice, because people in Malaysia may not know, but Dato' Halim has made immense contribution to the entire Islamic financial spectrum, the bank, the Takaful company, the asset management company, the brokerage company, the consulting side. It is in the consulting side that he is much more known in the Islamic world. So as I was sitting in the audience, I felt very proud that every year we are improving on the standards. I was very, very honored and privileged. That's what I felt.
Has it changed the way you do things, being the recipient in 2012, the way you look at things now, or are you more contented now that you have been recognized?
I think whenever you get recognized, then it puts a greater burden on you. My late father used to say that there is zakat on wealth, but there is also zakat on position, on knowledge. On knowledge zakat, you share it. On position, you become more humble. and you serve the industry. That is how I feel about it.
I think one of the things that need emphasis here is simply that the whole system, the whole exercise of giving this Royal Award every 2 years is to give the burden of spreading the message across the world to the winner of the award. In this particular sense, if you ask my friend Iqbal about this, the challenge to him was how to do that. And once you are recognized as the recipient, you are no longer a learner. You are literally, a mission. You are on a mission yourself. You have to educate people. You have to make people aware of what Islamic finance and banking is all about. And mind you, it's very fast spreading in terms of knowledge, but not enough. I think there's so much scope for it. That is the burden that is being handed over to the recipient, and they help us, the cause, if you like, of spreading the word about the positive contributions that Islamic banking and finance could do for this very modern, high-tech, fast developing world. And that's where I think the recipient is very, very important in their role.
Okay, thank you, Tun. The Royal Award for Islamic Finance is again, a platform to actually recognize outstanding contribution from an individual for the Islamic finance industry. What about other disciplines? Do you think we need another platform to actually recognize contribution from the other discipline as well? I mean, in the past, Islam and Muslim have made great contribution to the field of sciences, mathematics, astrology, architecture, engineering. Do you think there is a need for us now to recognize in other fields as well, apart from Islamic finance? And if it is, what sort of platform would be suitable? Would WIEF would be a suitable platform to actually recognize such contribution?
Well, I thought of handing over the first part of the question to Iqbal first in terms of whether there needs to be like that. If you do, then I take over, if
Sure.
I may.
Of course. There is already some existing platforms which recognize outstanding contributions, science, technology, humanities, medical services, such as the King Faisal Foundation. The Islamic Development Bank Group also has awards. The Qatar Foundation also has awards. I think what we now need is to bring all these awards together under a platform. And that's where I will pass the buck or the floor back to Tun Musa. Can WIAF be the clearinghouse for all these awards so that we have a platform where we can get the global attention of the Ummah? Because fragmentation of awards weakens them. When you consolidate, some form of consolidation in those awards could be fantastic.
Yes. I think it's true that in many ways, in many respects, there do exist in terms of what in the different disciplines. But one of the challenges insofar as the Islamic world is that there are not enough development in those different disciplines that are of such an outstanding manner that deserves the sort of thing that we have invented in terms of giving this Royal Award. Because I like to think that this Royal Award is unique, and even though there are one or two possible rivals, if you like, in a positive way, but still what we plan to do, what we hope to do, which I do believe is actually happening slowly, is to make it outstanding enough as to be prestigious enough. That's point number one. I think we're getting there slowly but surely, and the recognition is widespread. As you said just now, after last night, you had calls from all over the world making comments about the choice, etc. But beside that, insofar as to cover other disciplines and putting aside the challenges that we have, I don't think there is a problem for organizations like the WIF to emulate, if you like, or to start doing this. But to begin with, to be frank with you, there is a very small start in the sense that even in this Royal Award exercise, if you like, the process that we went through, there is already an element of WIEF coming in. Because my personal view is that if you are looking for an international, global organization that seems to be globally much more acceptable than ever before, putting aside my modesty, I would say maybe the WIEF is it, because it's always quoted with pride. For example, the London conference was really something which became worldwide and has attracted the attention of the non-Muslim business communities especially, which had always been our objective, to be inclusive, that's the word. Because we take pride in saying every time that we exist when we organize conferences or whatever roundtable or projects for women and for the youth, it's always inclusive. We don't ask question about your religion, because that really is the objective. We call ourselves the bridge. So the fact that with this award, I'm appointed, if I may personalize it, the fact that I'm appointed is mentioned as chairman of the World Islamic Economic Forum. It's already a start of the connectivity of it. And I was actually, I can say this publicly, that our informal talks among ourselves, members of the jury, had been leading towards this potential collaboration in a much more concrete way. The possibilities had actually been listed yesterday with my colleagues and supposed to be followed up. So in answer to your question, yes, we'd love to, but if we do and when we do, we want to do it well. But we've got a long way to learn about it. And if there are other organizations willing to do it, so be it. The biggest problem, as I said to begin with, Islamic finance is really something which we are convinced the world needs in the building up of modern economy. So that's very important. If you want to talk about recognition of other professions or disciplines, the problem is the lack of eminence. May I say this? The lack of eminence among Muslim scientists and people dealing with the particular disciplines that deserve this sort of treatment that we give. Just one final word, I may be talking too much about this. One final word is that the objective of the award for Islamic finance is, number one, Islamic finance is relatively new, yet we are convinced it is something that's very constructive, that could be offered to the world in a very constructive, positive manner. And number two, in order to do that, we have to spread the word. We have to get more and more people to be part of the community that accepts it and utilize it to the full, as we think this would be a win-win situation for everybody.
I suppose Islamic finance is the contribution from the Muslim society in the modern times. I think you mentioned in your answer there are lack of eminent personalities in the other discipline. Why do you think that is that lack of personnel in the other discipline? Whereas when we look at Islamic finance, I mean, it started in the early 1960s, as we actually witnessed it last night on the video screen. But in other disciplines, I mean, it's quite difficult for us Muslim to actually associate any Muslim individual in any particular field, be it science, be it architecture, be it technology in these modern times. Of course, I mean, Islam has made great contribution over the past years. Mr. Iqbal, what is your view on that? Why is that you don't see a lot more of this development in other disciplines as well?
My view is that in the last 200 years, the Muslim societies were under one or another form of colonialism across the Islamic world. We are newly independent countries. One night in August 1947, India was neither independent, nor was it a republic, nor was it a secular country, nor was it a democratic country. Overnight you become that. Overnight Pakistan becomes that. 31st August 1957, Malaysia becomes that. If you look at these countries when they became independent, and if you take the example of Malaysia, you went on a bus and you bought a ticket. That ticket would have been printed in Her Majesty's stationery shop. You bought a nail, it was made in Britain. So neither we had the industrial infrastructure, nor did we have the human infrastructure. And I think it's easy to replicate the physical infrastructure. We can build the toll roads, the motorways, the airports, and all those things. But to build universities, to build talent, and to get rid of neo-colonialism, or what I call colonialism of the mind, and to give us confidence as self-reliant, well-adjusted to the world, takes a lot of time. And it needs role models. Alhamdulillah, we have got role models. So we have a Nobel Prize winner from Egypt in physics, got another Egyptian with a Nobel Prize in literature, Najib Mahfouz. We've got some breakthroughs. But I think building for the future requires a huge investment in education. Now, some of the countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, this year's budget, Saudi Arabia is putting 25% of the budget in education. Primary education, secondary education, university education. We need to invest in education. We need to invest into leadership development. We need to create role models. And as we do that, we will see the results coming out. It takes a long time to build the kind of gap which we are trying to overcome, 2 centuries of almost dark ages, if I may use the word, and to come out of that and build self-reliant nations and countries which produce leaders in every area of life is a challenging situation. So I think we are making progress. We are kind of halfway on the mountain. We've laid some good foundations, but we need to do much more. And I think the key lies really in 2 areas, education and building role models for our youth.
Just to complement this, the priority to be given on education is a very important aspect which has been mentioned here. I just wish to tell you from personal experience, when I was in government in Malaysia, when I was in charge of education those days, we allocated 23% of our national budget on education. That was because of the political will of the leadership then, at that time, that getting the right priority and spending so much effort and money in this particular aspect. But having said that, I think we have reached the level or the period in our history where we need to go beyond that. We have to go beyond that. Education per se as a general need of any developing society is very essential. But now many of the developing societies are developing fast. Just to keep up with the world is the biggest challenge, but nevertheless there are countries which develop fast. But we must improve on an understanding what education really we need to pay more attention to. There is still debate about the need to build a personality. We talk about the good citizen in the good life, how to behave. But the more technical aspect of life and development, I think needs to have also a higher priority. In other words, we must also learn from the achievements of other countries, especially the West, for example. We must admit it, we are back, very far behind. Emulate them and also be very innovative. That's the word always. Innovation, innovation, innovation. And the spirit of adventurism. But this could not exist without political will. I'm not saying that we have to depend on government, but the whole psyche of the nation should be towards education, from the basic need of education as we interpret it, as we put into practice and try to achieve success there, to a higher level of it, the competitiveness of it. We must accept that this is a highly competitive world, and in order to be able to compete, even the education you give must also be, as I said, much beyond the original needs of education. I know I'm speaking in a very abstract manner, but I think the idea is there.
I suppose you mentioned about innovation. I think innovation is very important in whatever field that we actually do. In fact, why Islamic finance has become, has been accepted worldwide is because of the innovation that we put in the product and services, as well as in various other key building blocks. We look at the West in terms of the new economy, in terms of innovation, in terms of technology, biotechnology, medical services, they are continuously innovating. They always come out with new ideas. How do we foster this innovative ecosystem in a Muslim country? I mean, you mentioned about education. What other ecosystem that we need to put in place to actually foster this culture of innovation? Education alone, I suppose, is not sufficient to actually, create that culture of, wanting to actually create something new, wanting to actually explore an area. Which
If I may take your word, your very important word, culture of innovation. Innovation is something physical, really. Culture is something mental. So if you don't have that mental, in order to be innovative, you must realize that you are meeting challenges. You realize that it's a highly competitive world. That's point number one. Point number two is when you copy, you have to improve on it. I think the developing world, in many countries, even the developing world, have already entered the stage of copying, if I may use the word copy, as a result of education maybe, that they've seen this is a good idea, they take it back, and the technology is being improved, not in the sensational manner that deserves an award like Iqbal has, for example, something which starts it off. Out of that, we've got a long way to catch up with the challenges, as you put it there. So that culture innovation is something. So that has to be, I don't know how to instill, I think, in the minds of the young, especially. I don't know, I think you have.
Yeah, I think you absolutely stated right. It's a mindset issue, it's a culture issue. Culture is always created by intangibles. So we start with education. Educational institutions have history, but successful educational institutions are places of light, learning, and liberty. The last part is very, very important, where you have freedom of thought. The West has created an environment where they attract our top talent from the Islamic world. And they create an environment where they can grow and foster and nurture them. So it's like a plant. If I give an analogy, the people from the emerging countries, most of the Islamic worlds, are like plants who were denied light, soil, water. They go to the Western environment and they just blossom there and they prosper. Some of them come back to us. Sadly, most of our best people are today driving the Western institutions. And a sign of revival of an economy and a country is when your best brains start coming back. India's economy started turning around when you had the Indians who were successful in Silicon Valley, the Indians who were successful as business and entrepreneurs, coming back to India and bringing those know-how, technology and management and building the country. Our founding Prime Minister of India said something very profound. He said when India became independent that my job as a leader is to create the climate, the soil, the earth, the water, where we can nurture these plants and let them grow and prosper. And he also talked about the responsible leadership. I think leadership has a big role to play. And Nehru said something very profound. He said, my job as a leader is to look back, and when I die, I don't want to be in the dustbin of history. I want to be like a beacon star guiding my people toward their destiny. And if you look at what he did was, he created the human infrastructure of India. China was investing into the physical infrastructure. India was investing into the human infrastructure. And this can-do attitude, that no matter what, you can do it. And that's very, very important for us. So creating a climate whereby people can grow at home, people who are abroad can come back at home, and that requires light, learning, and liberty, and of course, good leadership.